Have you ever caught yourself replaying a painful moment over and over again in your mind? A mistake you made, an opportunity you lost, a tragedy you couldn't prevent. You lie awake at night asking, why did this happen? Why me? If only things had been different. But here's the truth. Life doesn't care about our if-onlys. Life moves forward with or without our approval. And that's why Dale Carnegie gives us one of the most liberating principles ever taught. Cooperate with the inevitable. What does that mean? It means learning to stop fighting battles we cannot win, and instead finding the courage to live fully in the present, even when the past cannot be changed. Let me begin with a simple but powerful story. A man once cut off his little finger in a machine accident. Now, he had two choices. He could keep replaying that accident in his mind, drowning himself in self-pity, whispering, if only I hadn't reached out that way, if only I had been more careful. Or he could do what he eventually did, accept the fact that the finger was gone. He could never bring it back. He could never change what had already happened. And once he embraced that reality, the mental torture vanished. This story may sound small compared to the massive storms life throws at us, but it contains the seed of freedom. When we stop resisting what we cannot change, we finally free our minds. Another story. In a large building, there was a freight elevator operator who had lost both legs in an accident. Now, imagine that for a moment. To lose not one, but both legs. Most people would collapse under the weight of such a loss. They would live the rest of their days in bitterness, replaying the tragedy, drowning in the words, "Why me?" But not this man. He accepted what had happened as unchangeable. He refused to waste his energy on things he could never undo. Instead, he focused on what he still had, the ability to work, to provide for his family, to contribute. When someone asked him how he managed to stay cheerful, his reply was simple. I can't bring my legs back, so why should I spend my life in misery about it? That's the power of cooperating with the inevitable. Now let's move to a deeper, more painful example. Elizabeth Conley lost her young daughter. The grief was unbearable. She felt as though life had been robbed from her. Every day she asked, why did this happen to me? Why was my child taken? If only I could bring her back. But of course, no amount of tears, no amount of questioning could bring her little girl back. Elizabeth eventually realized this. She only had two choices. She could live in endless sorrow, destroying her own life in the process, or she could accept the inevitable and honor her daughter's memory by living with strength and faith. She chose acceptance. She chose to cooperate with the inevitable. And in that choice, she discovered peace. Why fighting reality only destroys us? Think about it. When you refuse to accept reality, when you fight against the unchangeable, who suffers? Not reality, not life. You do. It's like standing in front of a hurricane, screaming at the wind to stop blowing. The storm doesn't care about your demands. It rages on. And all you succeed in doing is exhausting yourself. The truth is simple. You cannot change yesterday, you cannot undo tragedy, and you cannot control everything life throws your way. But you can control how you respond. And in that response lies the difference between misery and peace. Carnegie's principle in action. Carnegie wasn't just preaching theory. He collected stories from real men and women who lived this principle. They weren't superhuman. They weren't immune to pain. They simply discovered that once you accept the inevitable, once you stop asking, "Why me?" your suffering lightens. As one wise saying goes, when fate hands you a lemon, make lemonade. It sounds cliché, but it's true. Acceptance doesn't mean you like what happened. It means you stop letting it own your mind. Reflection pause. Let me pause here and ask you a question. Right now in your life, is there something you keep fighting even though you know you can't change it? A relationship that ended, a mistake you made years ago, a health condition you can't reverse, a tragedy you couldn't prevent. Are you still clinging to the words, "if only"?
Because if you are, then perhaps this principle was meant for you. What if you shifted today? What if instead of asking, "Why me?" you asked, "How can I live fully in spite of this?" That's the essence of Dale Carnegie's wisdom, moving from theory to practice. But how do we actually practice this? How do we stop replaying the past in our minds? Step 1 is simple but powerful. Face reality head on. Don't sugarcoat it, don't deny it, don't hide from it. Say the truth aloud. Yes, this happened. I cannot change it. Step 2, decide not to waste another drop of energy on it. Every time your mind starts replaying the story, remind yourself, this is the past. The past cannot be changed. And step 3, turn your focus to what can still be built. Like the man who lost his legs but chose to work cheerfully. Like Elizabeth Conley, who chose to live bravely after her child's death. The past may be gone, but the present is still yours. The emotional resistance. Of course, let's be honest, acceptance doesn't come easily. When tragedy strikes, our emotions resist. Our hearts scream, "This isn't fair." And maybe it isn't fair. But the question is not whether it's fair. The question is, will you let it destroy you, or will you cooperate with the inevitable and move forward? This doesn't mean you don't grieve. It doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It means you don't set up permanent camp in that pain. You let yourself feel, but then you move. You move because life itself is still calling you forward. The liberation of acceptance. When you embrace this principle, a strange thing happens. The chains of the past begin to loosen. The mental prison you've been locked in begins to dissolve. You realize that you can smile again, that you can breathe again, that you can live again. Because now you're no longer resisting what you cannot change. You are flowing with life instead of fighting against it. That is liberation. That is peace. So as we close this first part of Dale Carnegie's lesson, let me leave you with this. The finger will never grow back. The legs will never return. The child cannot be brought back. But life still offers you today. And if you cooperate with the inevitable, if you stop wasting your soul on the unchangeable, you'll discover that even after tragedy, even after loss, there can be peace. In our next video, we'll explore even more powerful stories, how great leaders, artists, and thinkers, people like Booth Tarkington, Sarah Bernard, J.C. Penney, Henry Ford, and even Socrates learned this very principle and turned their darkest moments into strength. But for now, remember this one line: cooperate with the inevitable, and you will discover peace.